Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. Delighted to be joined here by former Galway hurler and What's the Score founder Paul Flaherty for a preview of this weekend's All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship semi-finals. Obviously, two massive games, Limerick against Galway and obviously Clare against Kilkenny as well. I suppose, Paul, first of all, what's the story with yourself, and I suppose what's the excitement like maybe in the Tribesman County leading up to this one?
Yeah, thanks very much, Aaron, for having me on. Yeah, it's all pretty positive here in Galway. A really good sense after the Tipperary win there now over the quarterfinal. So a lot of people were, the week before Tipperary kind of gave awfully a good bit of a hammering. So we were everyone was kind of tip that they were form team and they were going to bulldoze us over, but that didn't quite go the way that they thought, and just really looking forward to Saturday evening now at 6:00, and it's going to be an interesting one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I suppose the same four teams in the All Ireland Hurling semi-finals as well. I think I've seen a tweet maybe might have been Conor McKenna maybe, who was saying I think it's the first time in 100 years that's happened in the All Ireland Hurling Championship, where it's been the exact same semi-finalists in the exact same order, exact same scenario. Obviously, Limerick going in as Munster champions, Kilkenny going in as Leinster champions, and then obviously Galway and Clare going through the back door. So I suppose familiar territory for all teams involved, really.
Yeah, and it's kind of strange that is the stat. When you listen to, let's say, the hurling experts or the pundits, they're all like, the hurling championship is so wide open, and thankfully the football one is this year as well. But it's weird to have the same four semi-finalists as last year, because let's say, you've got Cork, you've got Waterford, you've Tipperary, you've got other teams like that who aren't in it again this year, which is kind of strange. There's a lot of teams, a lot of people would have tipped them to be the actual champions, never mind not being the last four. So it is a strange stat, and I do think I was listening to David Herity there not so long ago, saying that like Cork and Tip had to peak like 5 or 6 weeks ago in the Munster Championship, whereas in the Leinster Championship, the Galways and the Kilkennys, and even maybe so the Dublins, but they just didn't get going. They don't have to peak as soon as the Munster team. So there is a bit of an imbalance there. I'm not sure will something be looked at, but like the Munster Hurling Championship, it's you could write a Netflix series every season about it. It's so just dramatic and just so many ups and downs in it. But it's strange to have the same four teams in it. But two really good hurling matches coming up this weekend.
Absolutely, yeah. And it probably shows as well, maybe that I suppose because the narrative really is that the Munster Championship is, a good bit better than the Leinster Championship, or I suppose it is far more competitive in Munster. But when you look at it, like this season, obviously two sides coming from Leinster in the semi-finals, two teams from Munster. Same again last season, and it's generally been that way over the last sort of 5 or 10 years or so, that it has been very even between Leinster and Munster sides. So maybe it shows that, like the Munster Championship isn't as far ahead as what people, I suppose, perceive. Like maybe the Leinster teams, like Galway and Kilkenny, are, contenders, and the fact they're thereabouts every year shows that it is fairly even year on year.
Yeah, I might disagree a tiny bit there. As let's say that whoever wins the Leinster final is guaranteed to be in the All Ireland semi final. So that, like, I'd say, I don't know the stats, but over the last 10 years, it's either Galway or Kilkenny, I would imagine. So one of them are obviously going to be there. In terms of Munster, like Cork were out, and they a good few years ago they could have been in the Munster final there, and it varies so much. So it's hard to know. I actually think that the Leinster is a lot easier because it does seems to be Galway, Kilkenny have been there the last 10 years. Dublin have been struggling to kind of get there. Wexford under Davy Fitz were doing very well, but have seemed to just slightly come off the pecking order there. And even like last year, they only drew or lost to Westmeath as well in the round robin. So it's hard to know where they are. So I think Munster is ahead, and the reason that they're ahead is because they have to peak for every single championship match. Like, let's say a couple of weeks ago, Limerick were third, and they were nearly out of the championship, and they were I think that it all went down to their last game. So like, you didn't have the same scenario for Galway or Kilkenny. They weren't like at the being third in Leinster and like had a really cutthroat game in Leinster to make sure that they got to the Leinster final. They kind of got there easily enough. Like, they would have bet Antrim by 7 or Dublin by 7 or whatever it is. So I think Munster is ahead. Yeah, and I just think that for Galway, Kilkenny, they can kind of time their runs better, I believe.
Absolutely. A few comments coming in here. Denise says, I think it'll be a Limerick Clare All-Ireland final, a replay of the Munster final, and I think Clare will get over the line by the thinnest of margins. And Kurt says here, same as last year, Kilkenny versus Limerick, and Jack says Kilkenny, just feeling them versus Limerick. So certainly plenty of predictions flying in there. And I suppose the first game, as you were saying there, Limerick against Galway on Saturday, 6 o'clock throw-in, I believe it is, there in Crow Park. So what's the feeling sort of coming into this from a Galway perspective? I mean, Limerick are obviously a side you have a lot of familiarity with, obviously played in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. I think 2020 was the All-Ireland semi-final as well. You think back to the 2018 final. I mean, Limerick and Galway, although they're in separate provinces, like, they're two teams that know each other inside and out. And obviously Limerick have been the team that have come out on top every time in the championship, in this sort of era of dominance from Limerick. But what's the feeling or perspective coming into this one?
Yeah, just from listening to kind of Henry Shefflin's post-match analysis, like, they bet tip when the odds were against them. Like, they're kind of going at this game, it's a shot to nothing. But deep down, they really believe they have a chance, I think. So it's really optimistic. Let's say if Galway lose by 2 or 3 points, I don't think everyone's going to be slating them. I don't think they're going to be like, Garage Mac, it's time to retire, or Di Burke, or whatever it is. I think it's going to be really close. I think that it's kind of a shot to nothing. Limerick have everything. They're going for, is it 6 in a row now? So
4 in a row, yeah.
4 in a row, yeah. So it's like the pressure is on them. We feel so. I mean, a lot of our, like, Galway are blooding in. Lots of younger lads. Even Sean Lennon came in the last day, did a really good job. There's still Kevin Cooney is kind of playing there at full forward. For such a young lad to play in such a pivotal spine of the team, like, it's good to see these young lads coming up. So yeah, I think Galway are kind of going through a bit of a transition. So to be in this position, I think it's going to be 50-50, and hopefully Galway could edge it over the line.
Yeah, Nathan says here, do Galway have a chance, lads? I think they definitely do have a chance. I mean, maybe the narrative is that the gap maybe is shortened ever so slightly between Galway and Limerick coming into this year's All-Ireland Hurling semi-final. I mean, last year, I remember, like, when previewing the game and everything else, it just felt like it was inevitable that Limerick were going to win it, just considering Limerick looked probably a lot better this time last year. By the smallest of margins, of course, considering how that game went versus Clare. But when you look at Limerick this year, there have been times this year where they haven't looked at their best. They obviously have injuries as well, like no Declan Hannon, no Sean Finn as well. And obviously for Galway, it's the second year under Henry Shefflin, been there before in this game. So it does feel like this game is going to be, although last year was very close as well, in fairness, like, it does feel like coming into this one, you feel like it's definitely going to go down to the wire. And like, a Galway win would maybe be a surprise, but at the same time, it probably wouldn't be that big of a surprise considering how Limerick have looked at times this year.
Yeah, 100%. And like Declan Hannon, the captain out of your team, centre back, is such a big part. So not sure who's going to. I'd say Jim Burns. I wouldn't put, if I was Limerick, I wouldn't put Jim Burns in at 6. He's so valuable on the wing in terms of like running up that line and giving them that space to shoot. It's very hard. And centre back, it's harder to shoot from that position. So I'm not sure who they're going to put at 6. Probably Dan Morrissey, and move maybe Richie English back, cornerback, and Mike Casey full. So, and then you've got Keane Lynch as well, who hasn't been really, one of their much important player over the last number of years. He hasn't seemed to hit the form as well. So it's hard to write off Limerick. They're going for, as I said, 4 in a row, but it does seem like they're slightly coming towards the pack. and Galway, you know, as you said, it was very tight last year. Henry is under his second year. He knows the players a bit better. He seems to have got a better kick out of a good few lads there as well. So yeah, it really is in the melting pot, and hopefully, I think the big thing that I feel is that the Galway half forward line have to be able to win their own puck outs, because the Limerick half back line have been so dominant and so able to pick up the pieces there for the breaks. Because against Dublin, against Tipperary at times, when Galway's puck outs were going long, nobody was winning it cleanly, and they were just losing it too often. And if they don't have, let's say, a short puck out strategy to work it through the lines, I think you know, it could be 4 or 5 points in a row that Limerick might get, and that kind of momentum is hard to kill. So I think that's going to be a very important factor in the game on Saturday.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I suppose when you look at that Limerick attack as well, like in the likes of Aaron Gillan, who at times, like Shamey Flanagan, I think has been exceptional this year and probably one of the hurlers of the year. As you said, Cian Lynch, like it'd be interesting to see if he starts. But like, how to Galway contain that Limerick attack in your opinion? Because there's so much going on. Like, you've got Jeremy Burns coming from the wing as well. You've got Cole Hayes, who'll be making forward runs as he usually does. Gerard Hegarty tends to turn up in these games. So, Jesus, like, you wouldn't want to be Henry Shefflin, like thinking about a game plan or a plot to stop these Limerick lads, because when they're on it, like, there's probably nobody in the country realistically that can stop them.
Yeah, I think it's he has to get the matchups correct as much as he can. I'd say, like, for Aaron Gillan, let's say Brian Lohan tried to put Cian Nolan on him. I know Cian Nolan. I played Fitzgibbon with him in LIT as well. He was always a tigerish player, and I know why he put him on Aaron Gillan, because he doesn't. Sometimes he's not interested in the hurling part of it. He's just interested in winning the ball. But there was just so much space. Aaron Gillan is just playing out of his skin, and there was just so much space in front of him. There was no one to mark him. So I would go with someone quick anyway, definitely on Aaron Gillan, probably Jack Grealish or Darren Morrissey. That would be the matchups I would do there. And it's just, yeah, you probably have someone big and physical like Joe Cooney on Garrett Hegarty, or maybe even Fintan Burke would go on Hegarty as well. But then who goes on Tom Morrissey? So it really is, he has to look at all the players and all the matchups and try and get them correct. That's the way I go about it. If I was Henry, just because he did it in the last game. I know that just from talking to a few of the lads, like Sean Lennon was there to man mark Noel McGrath, cut his influence out of the game. And they also had Jason Ford targeted as well, to just be, don't let them get the ball, because like, get their key men that they couldn't get on the ball, let's say, and that's what they did, and it worked to their advantage, you know. So yeah, that's what, if I was Henry Shefflin, it's all about the key matchups. And I think every team is trying to, like, cut out the space in front of the full forward line, but then the Limerick lads are so good at shooting from distance, as you said, like Jimmer Burns, Kyle Hayes, Hegarty, Dara Donovan has been scoring from out the field, William O'Donoghue as well. So I think they just it's going to, that middle eight is going to be just doggy dog. It's just going to be hits after hits after hits. I don't think you can get rid of that space inside for Glenn. So it's just about having someone really quick on Glenn. I would say Garage Mack is going to be on Flanagan. They seem to be two bigger lads that are going to be on each other. So I think for Henry Shefflin, it's all about trying to get the matchups right against this Limerick team.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you said there, like, with obviously Cian Nolan picking up Aaron Gillan, like, it was fairly dominant for Limerick during that time period, until obviously Brian Lohan made the switch. But yeah, like, as you said, from a Galway perspective in general, like, they can definitely take a lot of confidence from some of their performances this year. Like, even the Kilkenny match, like, very, very close to getting over the line there. Obviously the semi-final or the quarterfinals versus Tipperary, I thought you did a lot right as well. And Conor Whelan, I suppose, has been in brilliant form, all-star territory. And I suppose, like, him going up against that Limerick defence, like, that's going to be, I suppose, an interesting matchup as well.
Yeah, and I think another slight advantage to Galway is that Sean Finn was always the person to mark Conor Whelan throughout the, as you said, 2018, last year, whenever they've met in the league and stuff like that. So that man marking duty is going to go on someone that hasn't been on him to date yet. So that's going to be really interesting to see. can, because he's in great form. He's really strong. He can score left and right. So if he's on form, Galway will be thereabouts. That's for sure. So, and even other lads like Kevin Cooney, Evan Nyland on the freeze has been very good, but he's actually picking up, a couple of points, 3 or 4 from play. Tom Monaghan has been, he kind of came on and got a few points the last day. In other games, he's been putting the ball, kind of taking some shots that weren't on. So, and then you've got Ronan Glennon as well, who'll be thereabouts as well. So the forward, and I also think that Brian Concannon, he's been exceptional in some games, but if he hits form as well, I think Galway will definitely be thereabouts. He's been just not 100% for the games, let's say, in the last 2 or 3 matches. But when he hits form, he got a super goal against Kilkenny in Nolan Park this year. He got a good few points there in the league as well. He can show that he has the ability to score from many directions. So if they get these guys on form, it's going to be a really, really tight match, and it'll go down to the wire.
Yeah, what's the biggest way you think Galway can overcome Limerick or hurt this Limerick side? Because as you said, Conor Whelan's obviously been in brilliant form, and I'm sure Limerick will be thinking of Conor Whelan and thinking how best to stop him. But what's the biggest way do you think Galway can overcome this Limerick side? Because as you've said, I think multiple teams have had plans for Limerick down the years. Obviously Clare, Waterford, and Limerick, just no matter the way, by the will, they seem to find a way. So what do you think Galway's plan is going to be to try and stop Limerick overall throughout the full 70?
Yeah, I think the plan, probably just to maybe go back to summarising there, it is in terms of the backs and midfield, it is about the man marking jobs that Henry will have for them, and probably Henry's experience. I think the game, they'll want to go for goal. I think that's so. If you look at Limerick, their anchor at number 6 is going to be taken out. Their best man marker at number 2 is going to be taken out. So it's all about goals. Goals, let's say the centre back always sits back and protects the full back line, and one of your best man markers is gone. So it'll be all into high ball into Conor Whelan, Brian Concannon, hit the channels on the side or high ball in and just attack for goal, go for goal from the off and just really put the pressure on them. And then the middle 8 is going to be doggy dog. It's just going to be just hunting in packs, work rate. And then you're surely going to be there within a shout then towards the end of it. So that's the way, if I was Henry, that's the way I'd be approaching the game. Just get Gillan and Flanagan and let's say maybe Hegarty and a few others, get the key people, man markers on them. And I would imagine Pádraig Mannion will be Galway sweeper and make sure that him and Cathal Mannion are distributing the ball correctly into Conor Whelan, Brian Concannon, Kevin Cooney, and then it's just going for goal, putting pressure on that Limerick full back line that I'd imagine is going to be a bit in disarray, whether Barry Nash goes out to 6, whether Dan Morrissey goes out to 6. So, it'll be, but you can never write Limerick off. Limerick are an exceptional team. They've shown it. There's been so many times in the Munster Championship when they've only won by 1 or 2 points. They just seem to always get over the line in some way, shape, or form. So it's just going to be a really interesting game. And I just hope that Galway turn up, because in some games, let's say against Dublin, they didn't turn up for 10, 15 minutes. They easily could have lost that. Against Kilkenny, they were gone. They were 9 points down, 8 points down, and they were lucky enough to come back with a Jason Flynn goal, who actually isn't. He pulled his hamstring there last week, so he's out for the rest of the season, which is a big loss in terms of impactful subs to bring on. So I just hope Galway turn up. They have to be there for the full 70, and if they're big key men like the Mannions, Dai Burke, Conor Whelan, Brian Concannon turn up, it'll be very, very close.
Yeah, and it's interesting, all right, you mentioned some of the inconsistency with Galway, because that's probably why, even for myself at times, I've probably had doubts with this Galway team. And I don't know, maybe it's because, as you said there, Galway, the main focus for them really is to peak when it comes to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, whereas Limerick sort of need to be at their best throughout the Munster Championship. And there has been times with Galway where they haven't looked great, but again, I suppose it's nearly because of the way that the Leinster Championship went with Westmeath obviously getting the win versus Wexford as well. Galway, at that draw versus Dublin, it didn't even matter in the end. Like, he still got to the final. And I think if Dublin had won that game, I think you still would have got to the Leinster final anyway, with the fact that Dublin drew to Antrim earlier in the season. So you're sort of looking at it there and you're thinking, like, Galway haven't been at their best at times this year, but is that because they've, I suppose, been waiting to peak for this stage of the season, or what do you put it down to?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that's the reason, but I'm not sure it is, to be honest. I hope it is, but I'm not really sure it is. It just seems that they've been a bit lost sometimes during matches, especially during the Dublin match. They were just pucking out the ball to the half-hour line, and no one was even contesting it. And Dublin were just working it up 1-2s. Conor Gray, Dara Gray, Conor Burke, other lads were just running past the Galway half-hour line in midfield, and they were popping the ball over Mark Rogan or whoever it was, putting it into Keane O'Sullivan inside. So it is a bit of a worry, but the one thing that the Galway seem to have this year is never say die and good bit of character. They seem to come back every time when they seem to be out of a game or they've been lack for 10-15 minutes. They have shown character. The lads have stood up and they haven't shied away from the challenge. So that really is something that's a really good positive to have, and they'll need it in abundance. But if they do go away against Limerick for 10-15 minutes, they're not going to be there. They have to be there in the game. Like that middle eight, again, as I said, is just going to be tackle, work rate all the time. And if they're not there for the full 70, if they're not tuned in, they're going to be blown away. So but that's championship hurling, so that they have the chance, and it's going to be a really interesting match.
Yeah, because I suppose from a Galway perspective, as you said, with Conor Whelan, like, I know Evan Nyland is the top scorer, I think, in the championship so far this year with 68 points. But aside from Conor Whelan, really, like, there probably isn't the same threat from your forward line as there is with Limerick. Like, we were mentioning some of the Limerick names there, and Aaron Gallan and Tom Morrissey, and obviously, Gerard Hegarty, all these lads. But with Galway, like, is that the worry, really, that the same threat isn't there? As you said, Brian Concanon's been in and out in terms of consistency. You've obviously got Joseph Cooney, these lads. But what do you think? Like, is the same threat there for Galway maybe in the attack as there is with Limerick?
Probably not the same threat, to be honest. They're like calling a spade a spade. They are like younger, like Kevin Cooney, Evan Nyland, Tom Monaghan. They are younger. Let's say Keenan Fahey, even he was sent forward last. They got 3 points, towards the end of the game. So they as I said, the real leaders need to stand up in terms of Concannon, Whelan. Even like as you said, Joseph Cooney is more of a midfielder, wing back, but he's been scoring kind of 2-3 points a game coming up the pitch. You've kind of Dahi, who got 1 or 2 points kind of in a game, and definitely Cathal Mannion then in his kind of free front, his free role kind of around midfield, the half back line there, he'll have to come up and pop up with a few scores. So that's why I think if Galway win the middle eight, get the ball into Whelan and Concannon, and it's going to be getting goals because Galway need goals because they're not as threatening as the Limerick forward. So they definitely need to be getting 2 goals, I think, in this match to win. So they're probably not as threatful as the let's say the Limerick team that we've seen, like Peter Casey, Aaron Glenn, obviously, Flanagan, Mulcahy that kind of comes in. Tom Morrissey always pops up with like 2 or 3 points. Cathal O'Neill does the same as well. They just seem to be big physical men. So probably the Limerick forwards are a bit more threatful, but goals, Galway will definitely need goals in this match.
Yeah, because even Limerick's bench as well, like the likes of Cathal O'Neill and Adam English, these lads, like, they're bringing off the bench. Like, Limerick's bench at times is just so strong. Like, and I suppose that adds another dimension to this game for Limerick as well. And we've seen it before with Paul Kinnerk and John Kiley, obviously on the sideline. Like, when they see they're so good at making those little changes, making the substitutes at the right time, and that's something as well that always, I think, stands for Limerick in a lot of these matches.
Yeah, and a lad that came on, I'm not sure did he start or come on there recently enough. It was David Reedy, and he got like 2 or 3 points in play there, and he was really, really influential. And he's been on that kind of periphery there for the last 3 or 4 years, and he's been very influential. And then, probably is Keane Lynch going to start? He could come on again. it's more like his presence, even if he's not firing, if he does one or two things, it looks like he's amazing, so more of his kind of name threat than his actual threat at the minute. And then you've got Adam English, like you've got bigger lads there like Conor Boylan, Colin Coughlin. They're massive young lad as well. Like, so they really have big, strong guys to come in. For Galway, Jason Flynn is obviously a big loss there, but they have other lads that can come in, but they're probably not as powerful as the Limerick bench there. So again, Galway, as I said, they have to be in it, they have to be wired, they have to be there for the 70 minutes, and they can't let up. They just have to keep the foot on the throat if they can.
Yeah, ultimately, then what are you thinking then in terms of a prediction? I mean, I'm sure you're obviously going to back the Galway men, but what do you reckon, or how do you see the game ultimately turning out?
I'm obviously I'm going to be there. I'm going to be cheering Galway on as much as I can. It's probably like I obviously want Galway to win, but Limerick are just probably slightly ahead in terms of like just they've been there for so long. They're so experienced. As I said, a lot of our lads are kind of not youngish, like Kevin Cooney and even Declan McLaughlin, Liam Collins. Our bench that comes on, they're all 20, 21, 22. They are young. So I really hope Galway perform and they give it their all, and they'll be definitely there within a shout if they get goals in it. So I'll go for Galway, but it's going to be really tight.
Yeah, if Galway do get beat though, do you think the season's still been a success? Like even losing in an All-Ireland semi-final, like it's such a tricky one because obviously losing to Kilkenny in the manner that you did with that late goal, obviously in the Leinster Championship, as you said, there were a few inconsistent performances. The league, can you really read it much into that? But like, is the season still a success even if you get beat on Saturday?
If I was I'd say the Galway lads are in the camp and they're like, they got to this stage last year. They want to, push. They don't want to stay in the same position that they did last year. That's not progress. It's not going forward. It's not going back. So I think it'd be a mini setback, if they do lose. Yeah, I think because Henry Shefflin's in his second year. I don't think 2 years is a lot, but in management these days, 2 years can be a long time in a role. That's just the way. It's a results-based industry, so probably it would be a mini setback if they didn't win. Like they were so close last year. It's probably okay. You were so close last year. We've improved this year. Got more lads in. Now is the time to not be glorified wins and get into the semi-final. It's time to actually start winning and get into a final and being in the melting pot there in the biggest day of the hurling calendar. So I would see it as a setback, I suppose. But they're playing the best team around that have been there for the last 4 or 5 years. If they were playing a Tipperary that haven't been there in a while, or a Cork that hasn't been there in a while and they lost, it'd probably be a bigger setback. But since they're playing a team that is going for 4 in a row, it's probably not as much of a setback, but it would be ultimately.
100%. Yeah, Raymond says here, Galway are healthier than Limerick at this stage of the season. Good health is hugely important, and Galway hit a lot of wides. If Galway keep the wide count down, they've a great chance. They definitely do. You're thinking Galway then by 2 points, 1 point, or what do you think?
1 point. 1 point. Yeah, 1 point.
Yeah, I'll probably go with Limerick by 3. I think myself personally as a neutral. But look, to see Galway get in the final and obviously shake it up a bit would obviously be great to see. But I think it's just hard to see anyone really stop this Limerick team at this moment in time. The next game, or the next semi-final, obviously on Sunday, Kilkenny versus Clare. Big game obviously for both counties. Kilkenny going in as Leinster champions, and Clare obviously coming through the back door, having beaten Dublin in the quarterfinals. Obviously, repeat of last year's semi-final as well. As we were saying, if we take ourselves back to this game last year, Kilkenny absolutely wiped the floor with Clare. I mean, it was a game that was pretty much over at half-time. I think it was 9-10 points, I think was the gap at half-time. And Kilkenny just cruised through in the end. And you think of the amount of momentum that Clare were carrying sort of going into that game, having pushed Limerick so close, having beaten Wexford in the quarterfinals as well. Like, could that play a part in this game, do you think? The fact that, like, Kilkenny won that game so one-sided last year, could that play a part in, I suppose, both camps? Because Could Kilkenny get ahead of themselves? Could Clare go in gunning for revenge and lose sight of the task? Like, what you reckon?
Yeah, again, it's hard to know. Let's say Kilkenny are it's a different management under Kilkenny, which is definitely different. Let's say no more Cody. It's under Derek Ling. He seems to have brought the same kind of work rate, the same Kilkenny that never say die and always get a late goal to win a match. So Kilkenny do seem in good form now. It's their injuries that seem to be doesn't seem to be in their favour. But in terms of last year, I wouldn't read too much into it. If Kilkenny do read too much into it, there'll be a bit too much complacency, and that's always a bad thing to have in a team. So I think Clare might use it as motivation, but Kilkenny shouldn't be looking back on it. So Clare again, they've been peaking. They've been doing very well in the Munster Championship there against Dublin. They were absolutely just phenomenal there at times. Just the scores, the running they were doing, the teamwork and the team play that they were doing was very good as well. So this game it's going to be really, really interesting to see how both teams approach it. Again, they haven't played each other a lot, so it's all kind of hands on deck, and it'll be interesting to see how they both set up.
Yeah, I suppose it's going to be such an entertaining game. Like both sides, you'd imagine it's going to go full throttle, fully at it. Like, and especially when you look at the players on the pitch for either side, like especially with TJ Reid, Billy Drennan, Adrian Mullen, I'm hearing it's going to be back for this one as well at one end, Owen Cody, and then with Clare, like some of the forwards they have and the likes of Tony Kelly, Mark Rogers, Aidan McCarthy. I mean, this is going to be like some game of hurling, really, and like especially if you imagine Clare bring what we know they can bring, like this is going to go down to the wire and possibly extra time, possibly even more. Like this is going to could be one of them crazy games we see, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it does have the makings of it. There's a lot of scoring power there with the Clare forwards, like Tony Kelly. The last day was, and even in the championship so far, like I think it's 4-21 he's got from play, and then it's only like a goal and I don't know 10 points from frees, like, and he's up towards as you said, Evan Nyland I think is leading it there at the minute, but like a lot of them are frees. But like Tony's been playing some stuff there, and even when it's always a good sign when Tony isn't playing well, and then the other guys are popping up, like Mark Rogers has got in there with a few goals, really threatening. Shane O'Donnell has been just a workhorse there and always seems to be popping up with a few points. I actually think there's definitely more in Peter Duggan as well. He hasn't really, I'm not sure what his stats are, what his totals are, but it doesn't seem like he's scored too much doesn't seem like he's contributing to the scoreboard a lot, but he's probably catching a good few puckouts and breaking balls there for the other players, but there's definitely more in him. Ryan Taylor has been up and down the field, always seems to be getting 1 or 2 points. And Aidan McCarthy, he was in flying form. I know he was injured, but hopefully he might be back for this game as well. So the firepower that they have, and then they seem to be, they've subs to bring on there, like Robert Mounsey, Aaron Shanaher always comes on, Ian Galvin as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how I think Croke Park will suit Clare as well, because there's lots of space for their forwards. They've got loads and loads of pace, so it should suit them. And if they turn up, they'll definitely be very close to winning.
Yeah, do you think Clare are going into this semi-final in a better place this year than last year, or the other way around? Because it's a hard one to know in some ways, because I think last year, like, Clare probably played better in that Munster final versus Limerick. I think they pushed Limerick a lot closer, whereas in this Munster final, it felt like they left a lot behind them. But at the same time, against Wexford last year, they were pretty poor, but still got over the line. Obviously, they were playing Dublin in the quarterfinals, and it was kind of a hard one to judge that game, because I think Clare levels above this Dublin team, in all honesty. So, like, where do you see Clare going into this? Are they in a better position going into the semi-final than last year, or what do you reckon?
I think they're in a better position scoring wise, definitely. Yeah, they seem to have their younger lads again. Like Mark Rogers wasn't really there last year, and he's been one of their key players this year. They've other younger lads that are coming there. I actually think they're scoring there definitely, but in terms of their backs, maybe not, because they've been found out against Limerick, as we were kind of discussing before. Now they've got Conor Cleary, who is in doubt, and John Conlon, and they're their two biggest kind of physical backs that they have. And like Kilkenny are always like, you've got Walter Walsh, you've got big lads there. Owen Cody is strong as an ox. Like, you know, they've other big lads. John Donnelly's a big frame of a man as well. So that's the worry I would have for Clare. I actually think Clare are in a better position, but definitely in terms of their kind of team play, forwards, maybe probably fitness and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of their physicality and their backs, that could be the cog in the wheel for them. I really fear for that. Let's say if there's a couple of high balls going into that full back line, let's say Shane Morley is probably there since Keane Nolan after the Munster final. Like, I'm not sure like what size height Morley is, but he's probably under 6 foot, and probably Adam Hogan is as well. So if they have Walter Walsh, if they have big lads in and they're pumping high ball into the Kilkenny lads, it's going to be danger, you know, because John Conlon won't be sweeping back there if he's not number 6. So that's the worry I have for Clare. I think Clare are in a better position than last year, but it's just the few injuries that they have in their backs could catch them out. That's the fear I have for them.
Yeah, just a few comments to run through here. Gary says, "I welcome this channel. Marvelous, good people who love their sport. May the best team win. Much appreciated there, Gary. Great comments." Raymond says here, Clare did better than Kilkenny in almost every favourable stat in last year's semi-final. More possession, blocks, turnovers, won, attacks, shots on goal, etc. Clare lost it on accuracy. I suppose like a stat like that probably tells me that Clare were maybe focused too much on stopping Kilkenny, focused too much on their game rather than their own game, and they probably, you know, thought to themselves, look, well, like our forwards will do the business. We don't need to focus too much on that. And then probably, you know, just lost sight of it on the day and maybe just had an off day. So I suppose from a Clare perspective, like they need to focus on what they're good at the same time, because with their forwards, with their firepower, like they're more than capable of hurting this Kilkenny side. Like we saw what, you know, Conor Whelan done to Kilkenny at times, and you know, like Kilkenny could have very easily been on the other side of the draw had it not been for that late goal from Killian Buckley. So like for Clare, like their forwards should definitely cause a lot of damage for that Kilkenny defence.
Yeah, they should. As I said, there's loads of pace in there, and there's a lot of goal threat as well. So like I think like at times, like nearly every team plays two lads inside now. That's just the way it is. There'll be 2 lads inside, and one guy will be sweeping, and then that's just the way modern hurling is. So like you could have Peter Duggan in there for height. So if Clare hitting a high ball, then there's probably a smaller guy like Mark Rogers or Ian Galvin kind of going to each side of the channels and picking up the ball and picking up the breaks there. Even Shane O'Donnell as well. He's very good under the high ball, so they could have him in there for a while. So there's a lot of rotation, a lot of pace. It's interesting they say about accuracy there. Against the Clare and Dublin game, like in the first 10 minutes, Clare I think had like 7 or 8 wides, and that's then once they started getting a couple of goals, putting the ball over the bar, then they just steamrolled them away. So Clare will need to sharpen up to make sure that they can't kind of afford 7 or 8 wides in a row against Kilkenny. They'll get well punished. So they need to be consistent, a bit more consistency in terms of their shooting. But I think with this Clare team, I think there's more goals in them. I think the Mark Rogers has definitely brought more of a goal threat there. Shane O'Donnell always had it. Tony Kelly obviously is there as well, and even Ryan Taylor ran in a few times there and gave off a hand pass to someone there for a goal in the Munster Championship as well. So they do have more goal threat in them. As I said, I do think the Clare forward line has improved, but it's just the backs that I'd be worried about.
Yeah, Raymond also says here, Clare had 23 wides last year and lost by 12 points. I think Kilkenny only had 2 wides in the first half. Yeah, no, look, Kilkenny were, you know, hugely clinical, and I suppose that's the thing with Kilkenny. Like Kilkenny are a strange county at the best of times, and as you said there, like even with a new manager, they still get that late goal. They still find a way to win. Like there was times last year they didn't look great at all, and then it came to the semi-final and they were unbelievable, and they probably carried that into the final, and were probably a little bit unlucky not to win the game in the end. And that's the thing with Kilkenny, like they can be quiet enough throughout the entirety of the year, but when it gets to the semi-final and the final stage, like that's where they turn up, and that's where you see the best of TJ Reid, Owen Cody, Adrian Mullen, and a lot of the other younger lads who've come into the side as well.
Yeah, and it probably goes a bit back to the point of kind of the Munster and the Leinster Championship in terms of they can kind of not struggle through the Leinster Championship, but they can kind of, let's say, play. Because I know, let's say, Tom Phelan, John Donnelly, and Alan Murphy, like they kind of started throughout the Leinster senior hurling campaign, but they probably won't start this match at the weekend. Let's say like Wally Walsh and these guys. So, and even they've got the experienced Richie Hogan, who seems to be hanging on the number 26 jersey for years and years. And I'm not sure will they throw him into the melting pot for a couple of minutes as well. So, these Kilkenny lads, they've been around a long time. They know like even Killian Buckley, lots of experience, knew what to do when came down to the last minute there of the Leinster final. So these guys, so they were lucky enough, they got over the line against Galway. They've been 4 weeks now to prepare. So 4 weeks of just like probably 3 weeks of real hard hurling training, matches, game plans, all that kind of stuff. And probably this week has been tame enough, getting really ready for this battle against Clare. So they'll be, I think the rest would have done them the world of good. And as you said, they've got Adrian Mullen, TJ Reid, Owen Cody, Wally Walsh there. They've got serious firepower there and know-how as well. And even their backs, like Hugh Lawler has another year under his belt, and he's been really Butler as well. Lots of other lads there have been. Blanchfield has really improved as well. So they're a really good, a big outfit, and I think they'll be hard stop on Sunday.
Yeah, Kevin says here, very hard to call both matches, going for Limerick by 2 points. Clare, if Conlon and Cleary start, I think they will shade it. Cleary is vital. I think their full back line is a lot weaker without him. I suppose that's a good point, obviously, as well, like with Conor Cleary maybe coming back into the fold. Obviously, he was missing for that Munster final, and obviously we've seen, as you were saying there, Keane Nolan picking up Aaron Glan. So, like, to have those players back, if Conlon is fit as well, like that would be huge for Clare going into this.
Would, yeah, and I like, you look at bigger lads, and let's say you've got Jim Ryan as well. Would you move him back to full back? Probably wouldn't suit him, John. He's such a pivotal player going up and down the line there. David McInerney, he's been kind of injured as well. Hopefully he'll be back. David Fitzgerald, another big lad, you couldn't sacrifice him putting him back there. So I think Conor Cleary is going to be, if he's there, it'll definitely strengthen. Even if he's there and can't really hurl, as long as he can just stop one of the Kilkenny forwards and just pass the ball out to Rory Hayes or to Eibhear Quilligan in goal or whatever. So that's a very valid point. Yeah, if Cleary, hopefully Cleary will start, and it'll give Clare a better chance. It's it'll definitely help their chances there. He is pivotal to the match on Sunday.
Absolutely. What are you thinking then in terms of a prediction? I mean, it's such a hard one to call. I mean, this could go the distance. I mean, we've seen plenty of football games go the distance and go to penalties and everything else. I mean, you wonder, could we get a first hurling championship game that possibly goes the distance? But what are you thinking here? I mean, like for myself, like, geez, I don't know, like what way to call this. Like,
it is. That's it. But it's great. It's great to have it. It's great that we can call it, because there's been a lot of hurling matches throughout the years and semi-finals, and you're just like, Kilkenny or Limerick have been so powerful. It's been not great. So the two games, they're going to go right down to the wire. I think that if Conlon and Cleary aren't playing, I think Kilkenny are going to win by 3 or 4 points. If Conlon and Cleary do start, and if they do play, I think it might go to extra time, and Clare might win it with the legs, the sharp legs that they have. So that's my prediction.
Yeah, like that's the thing. I mean, like with some of the lads Kilkenny can bring off the bench as well. Like I think they probably have the best bench, you would say, in the country, like with players they can bring on, with Richie Hogan, with Killian Buckley, Dara Corcoran, David Blanchfield. I mean, there's a whole host of players that can come on and make an impact, and that's the thing for Clare, is for as good as Clare are, like if Clare are 2-3 points up, I know Clare have plenty of players they can bring on as well, but Kilkenny just seem to get so much impact from their bench. And even with that late goal they got versus Galway, like that's something that will stand hugely to Kilkenny. Like even if they're 4 or 5 points down going into injury time, like they know they'll back themselves going into the big moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it did. Like they could have easily just like went away, like because the game was near. It was basically up. Like I think it was like 10 seconds into, let's say, whatever, it was 5 minutes at a time. It was 5 minutes and 10 seconds. They could have easily just put their head down and give up. But like, yeah, that serious momentum shift will definitely stand to Kilkenny. And as you said, they've got serious lads to bring in. They just seem way more physical, a lot more experience wherever they've just seemed to got more experience out of the lads than the Clare lads there. So it's similar to, let's say, like Galway and Limerick. The Limerick's bench is a lot stronger than the Galway bench. They just seem to have lads that have been around more years than the the younger lads on the Galway bench. So yeah, Kilkenny, I just think Kilkenny are going to, if Cleary and Conlon aren't there, I think Kilkenny will definitely win by a couple of points.
Yeah, Raymond says again, it was noticeable that Clare were going for goals early on versus Dublin. They probably realise that to win an All-Ireland, they will have to get goals. Clare will need 2 goals at least to beat Kilkenny. Yeah, like such a hard one to call. Like it probably shaded towards Kilkenny ever so slightly, just because they've been here before. They've done it time and time again. They just seem to have a knack of coming through these big games and getting those big goals in big moments. But it certainly could go down to the wire. And, like if Clare were to pull through, I don't think it would entirely surprise myself either. I suppose in terms of player of the week or bet of the week, I mean, definitely a lot of great players on show. Like anything you could think of off the top of your head?
Jeannie Mac. I would. Connor Whelan for first goal scorer against Limerick.
There we go. You heard it here first. Yeah. I suppose Galway beating Limerick in general. I've seen someone else earlier there was saying Galway 5-2 to beat Limerick. So definitely probably would be good odds on getting Galway to beat Limerick, especially when it has been close down the years. But yeah, I suppose for myself, for player of the week, probably go for Owen Cody, maybe against Clare. I feel like he's going to have a big game and a big display, most definitely. But look, there's so many players on show this weekend. Like it's going to be a brilliant weekend of hurling.
Yeah, and as I said, I know you were talking about all-stars and stuff like that. You were talking about Conor Whelan and all-stars, like lads that have been playing pretty well in the championship. This is I know, let's say all-stars aren't what they're going for, like, but if they put in a really good display, they're going to be definitely in for a shoe in there for the all-star positions as well. So yeah, the last 4 teams, it's the real crunch time of the championship. This is why we watched it. It's been a really good championship, I think. Overall, the only thing I would have is just the Leinster is just a bit. It's easier for the Leinster teams to get in to the latter stages rather than the Munster. But I think it's been a really good championship. I think Hurling's in a good place, and looking forward to the 2 matches on this weekend.
Absolutely. I suppose before you finish up, then obviously your own app, What's the Score? Obviously, you're the man behind that, and I know obviously you've explained it a few times on this show already before. But I suppose for anyone who's tuning in, like where can they find it? Like in case I suppose maybe they miss certain sections of the match and they need to be kept updated on it.
Yeah. Well, if they're distracted this weekend and can't get onto the telly or can't look at it elsewhere, What's the Score is available to download on iOS and Android. We've gone through a new, complete new upgrade of our app there. So a lot of new features, teams, etc. It's a lot more easy on the UI UX on the app there. So and definitely for onboarding clubs there, that there's a lot of club championships happening at the minute. There's Westmeath, which we're very dominant in. Offaly is starting this weekend, which will have all the games live there as well, and a couple other club championships that are ongoing and that have started are on in the periphery there as well. So yeah, any club that wants to onboard, or if you want to follow the GA action, club and county, just download What's the Score and check out our website for more detail.
Perfect stuff. Well, look, listen, Paul, cheers very much for coming on. Best of luck, obviously, for Saturday. Hopefully, you'll be celebrating and everything else when it comes to the full-time whistle. And for anyone who tuned in, like, best of luck for your county this weekend. Leave a like, subscribe. Obviously, make sure to check out What's the Score as well. And cheers, Paul, for coming on.
Cheers, Aaron. Thanks very much.